Take that from that side and keep it on that. Because again, we're going to make sure that we have adequate release on this, because again, something that is designed to stick to glass and that sort of thing, we're going to be spraying this on there to be sure that we're going to get a release. And again, if you're using a ton of this, like we are, might be a good idea to wear masks if you're sensitive to aerosols. I don't like to overuse this stuff, but it is absolutely necessary to get a nice guaranteed release. Too much?
Yeah, too much.
And
that's why the door is open.
Over, yes,
Well
ventilation.
ventilated.
And then what we're going to do is we're going to use this brush, chip brush, just a cheap old chip brush. And we are going to work that into all of the little areas, nooks and crannies, under chin, in the nose.
You left a hair on this.
Behold my field of F's. They are barren. We'll get it. This is also called a waste mold. And the reason it's called a waste mold is this is going to be the first part of, that is actually in the resin, in the filament. It was cured.
That's not the hair I was talking about. The hair I was talking about is gone.
Okay, good. Okay, so you can see the detail there. If you want to zoom in and trek around this process, there's the crisscross, kind of that
crosshatch.
Yeah, that's because this was on draft mode, so it's not on a very high quality print setting. We okay?
Yeah, this thing is just getting my darn nerves.
I know, but we need it for stabilization. So anyway, yeah, if you look at that, that's not a lot of detail. What we do is, this is going to be a waste mold in that this is, we make the mold, we pour wax in it, this is the monster clay, and then once that wax comes out of the mold, that's what gets all detailed. We actually put eyes into it and get them ready and set, and do all the detail sculpting, the pores, the wrinkles, every bit of detail that we can fit in it. And then that gets molded again. So for the other stuff, you know, I don't want to say dried because it does evaporate. It flashes off. It takes about 10 minutes or so for the other stuff to flash off to where you just have the release. So while that's doing that, I'm going to tell you what we're going to be doing with the mold. So we have regular old dish detergent, Palmolive and Dawn works best. This is going to activate this, because if you were to put this on, you know, on something right out of the tube, it would be gooey in the middle, and it would be cured on the outside, and you wouldn't have a good mold. However, we're going to use water, and we're going to use this to kind of lubricate it and mix it together using gloves, and then that will be our waste mold for the Frankenstein. And we'll have to do a mother mold, a jacket mold on this as well. Otherwise, you take it off and it's all floopy. And now we have to prep our, make sure we get most of the little, because this is, we use this every time for our waste mold.
And it's just a Dollar Tree polypropylene mixing bowl.
Indeed. And you don't need a lot of water, because the more water you use, the more soap you have to use. So you just want to have enough to cover, you know, the amount of silicone you're putting in there. We're using about 4 tubes of silicone caulk. So that should actually be enough to cover and permeate. And then for our soap, you want to get a good amount in, because again, this acts as somewhat of a release, and chemically it bonds with the silicone. Silicone is condensation cure, which means that it pulls moisture out of the air to cure. If it's, you know, 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch, great. But in this case, we need that soap and we need that water to permeate through the silicone once we put it in there and give it that moisture molecule in the actual silicone.
And give it a little stir so that there's soap throughout the entire bucket of water.
You don't want to use this on your bare skin. You don't want to use this in close quarters. You want open ventilation, which means we're in a shop that has a big bay door. As you can see behind us, that's wide open.
5x5 door.
And where's our... I think it might be down there. I need the box cutter. Because we got this nice and mixed. And now we have to prep our tubes of caulk. So what we're going to do, we need maximum output here. So we are going to cut it off way down here. If you have that little tiny end, it's going to take forever to get your silicone out. And use safety with how you cut this. Don't lose a finger. Please. Use your lock if you can on your blade so it doesn't jump for you. Work clean and purposefully. That's what we always say. Alright, we got our 4 tubes prepped. Now, this one doesn't have it, but normally they have like a little swing out piece of metal so you can actually poke that. But that being the case, what we're going to need is one of those little wood dowels. Okay, and we are going to bust that out. As much of a hole there because we want to get a huge quantity of material out
At once.
Because we don't want it to start curing. It's literally going to start curing as soon as we get this mixed with the water. And this, like I said, is acetoxy cure silicone, so it only has one part. And breathe away. And breathe. Okay, got a really good view on our puddle here. And this is where the time really starts. So what time are we at here? 1:43. So we've been at this a little under an hour. So now we're going to start rapidly putting the silicone into the water. Pull it back all the way, and then you can get the first one off. Going for the second. And this is a 2-person job because one of the things about this is once you get the silicone applied, it cures very, very quickly. And are you coughing at the ammonia?
The vinegar stank.
Yeah, half vinegar and half ammonia smell. But again, open ventilation. And this will be our last one. Even with open ventilation, it kind of bites you in the back of the throat because it's such a huge quantity. So if I wasn't on live, I might even be wearing a respirator mask, but you wouldn't be able to hear me on live. So every once in a while, you can get away with it.
And it's on your arm now.
Huh?
I said, and it's on your arm now.
Okay, so we have this cooking time, right? Want to make sure that we have a little bit of the soapy water on our skin, or on our gloves rather.
Not on our skin.
Not on our... And we're going to start from the bottom, pulling this up into one big mass. And as we go, we're squeezing that water into the silicone. Get your gloves wet. And we are going to start of material sloshing around on this.
In my dish soap.
Yeah. And again, if you are just joining us, we are making a waste mold using acetoxy cure silicone. You can get this in Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart. It runs about $10 a tube for the GE silicone caulk number 1. And it is a 2-person job. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Get your arms, get your gloves wet. And we are going to start pressing this from the top down.
We want about what, 1/4 inch?
Half inch is optimum. 1/4 inch is the least we can do. And we're just going to push this on and down. Make sure you're getting it into the eyes, around the nose. It's already starting to get a little bit gelled. How you doing on that side?
Smooshing down.
Get it into the ears. You can kind of tell thickness by the amount of translucency. Obviously, the thicker it is, the more opaque. Do you have enough on the sides over there? Push it towards the back. We're covering the chin now. Continue to press and pull. Put some more soap on your hands. How's that?
You've ever worked with fondant? Very similar. Push it around gently without tearing it.
You want to move quickly though. Are you all the way down to the neck on that side? The base? No? No? Not even close? Not even close?
I made it to the jawline.
Okay. Okay, keep going.
Try to push and move stuff. Cover evenly.
Cat pee-pee. It's starting to gel. Can feel it. I don't know, we're cutting it close, aren't we? You still good? You want me to swip over there? Huh? Some more under the nose. We need to move that around. And this doesn't have to be perfect as long as we can get a waste mold out of it and get one casting. You need me to switch? Oh, you got no coverage on this side.
I told you.
That whole side of the neck is bare. Okay. It's underestimated the size of his noggin.
I told you.
Okay, let me switch it around this way. There's too much on the side of the head too.
Yeah, I'm trying to gradually move some down.
There is no gradually.
Well, without taking chunks.
We're probably going to need to add another tube of this. To make sure we have good coverage. Now, the most important thing is that we have some coverage over the whole thing. So we're moving some of the gel. What are you doing over there?
Trying to seal some of this from behind the ear.
Okay, but you're pulling too much off of the ear now. Be careful. Yeah, we're going to have to get another tube. It's starting to get too set, unfortunately. Start pulling some of that if you could. It goes through a cure cycle that it starts to get more gelatinous and it doesn't move the same. And then it also will stop sticking to itself. Best thing you can do is just be consistent and keep working it until you can't anymore. We don't have much in the back in the form of a cut seam, so we'll have to be careful there. And then we just want to press out as much of the air and water as we can. Spread out what we do have, because it will seat inside the mold. Do we got 100% coverage over there? Yeah. Again, this is not about precision at this point. No. This is a waste mold because you know you're only going to use it once, basically.
Hence the term waste.
Yeah. And in theory, in theory, if I wanted to, we could probably get an additional casting. Well, why would you need an additional casting out of this? Well, if I was going to say do a Bride of Frankenstein, I could start with this.
Shave it down.
Yeah. Put in the wounds, the different head, the different brow. Or, you know, I really want to do a mummy. So I'm going to take this head, shave down the brow, shave down some of the other details, put in the other sculptors' qualities, and then we're done.
You make another version of this actor.
What's on this? Didn't pull any off, did I?
Doesn't appear that.
Okay. Okay.
I think that's about all we're gonna get out of it.
Indeed. So we started this at 45. It's now 1:56. So we've been going at this almost 15 minutes, and it's almost now getting unworkable. Yeah, it no longer can be pushed around. It's definitely not pushing, it's just kind of barbering.
That's the technical term.
Barbering. Barber. Wise men told me about that once.
Horrible, horrible.
Horrible, horrible. I feel like there's some that's hitting. I'm feeling around with my fingers also to see if there's any areas that I'm feeling filament. And on the underside of this ear, I just felt the raspiness of filament. So I just want to get a little bit more coverage there.
Areas, sometimes fabric or paper. At this stage, if we're concerned about any thin areas, sometimes fabric or paper towels just right onto it on the outer side, right?
Yes, you have to be careful with that because then it does bond with the plaster. Because we're going to do a plaster mother mold over this to keep the shape.
But if we do that, usually then we grease it down with a little bit of Vaseline or some sort of release to keep the mother mold from sticking to it.
Right.
So there are ways around it if you're really concerned about how thin it is in certain areas.
Yes.
Because it is difficult to get it the same thickness all the way around.
Correct.
It's hard to judge sometimes how much you're getting.
So that's our mold. It's fairly even in thickness. I'd like to have gotten just a little more coverage on the back so I could do a nice cut seam and be able to staple through it. Typically it's like a 4 to 7 hour cure. If it's more humid, we may or may not, once we can see coverage, we may go get another tube of caulk so we can just fill in some of these lighter areas and maybe get a cut seam on the back. But
so your average head takes about 4 tubes and that's cutting it close. If you are casting in something that you got to accommodate for strength, then definitely I would go with 5, like I said yesterday in the store.
Holding the Frankenstein, and we will be back shortly. Please, if you're watching us, like, follow, and do all that jazz, and we will see you next time on Monster Manor, Making Monsters. We'll talk to you soon, everyone. Thank you for joining us.